Hey there, history buffs and lovers of all things ancient. Welcome to our channel. Today we're diving into the fascinating world of Roman history. Buckle up because we're about to uncover some seriously surprising facts about this epic civilization. We're talking gladiators, emperors, togas, and maybe even some vomitoriums. Spoiler alert, they weren't actually for vomiting. From their impressive engineering to their bizarre beauty routines, the Romans were a captivating mix of ingenuity and, well, let's just say interesting choices. So, if you thought you knew everything there was to know about ancient Rome, think again. Get ready to be surprised by some fun and unexpected facts about one of the most influential civilizations in history. Let's get started. Okay, folks. Let's dive right into the nitty-gritty. And by nitty-gritty, I mean kind of gross, with a Roman beauty routine that might make you want to brush your teeth twice. The Romans, those toga-wearing, chariot-racing, empire-building masterminds, were obsessed with oral hygiene, or at least their version of it. And believe it or not, their secret weapon for a dazzling smile was urine. Yes, you heard that right. Roman dentists and even famous authors like Pliny the Elder swore by the teeth-whitening power of, well, pee. Apparently, the ammonia in urine was believed to act as a natural bleaching agent. Now, before you go grabbing a chamber pot and trying this at home, we have to say, this is one ancient practice best left in the past. Modern science has thankfully provided us with far less repulsive ways to maintain our pearly whites. But the use of urine in Roman hygiene didn't stop at teeth whitening. Oh no, my friends, it gets, dare I say, even more interesting. Some Romans believed that urine, particularly aged urine, and yes, I just threw up a little in my mouth too, was an effective mouthwash. They thought it could freshen breath and even fight gum disease. I don't know about you, but I'd rather have dragon breath than try that out. It's safe to say that our modern understanding of hygiene has thankfully evolved a bit since then. But hey, at least it makes for a great conversation starter, right? Just maybe not at the dinner table. All right, let's move on from ancient oral hygiene to something a little less cringeworthy, shall we? Let's talk about gladiators. When we think of gladiators, we picture brutal battles to the death in front of a roaring Colosseum crowd. And while those spectacles were definitely a part of Roman culture, the truth about gladiatorial combat is a bit more nuanced. Contrary to popular belief, most gladiatorial matches didn't actually end in death. Shocking, right? Gladiators were expensive investments, and their trainers preferred to keep them alive and fighting. These warriors were highly skilled and trained for years, and their lives were valued, at least to some extent, in the brutal world of ancient Roman entertainment. Gladiatorial combat was as much about showmanship and entertainment as it was about violence. The goal was often to put on a good show, to wow the crowd with skill and bravery, and yes, sometimes bloodshed, but not necessarily death. Think of it like ancient Roman wrestling, dramatic, theatrical, and often staged, even if the injuries were real. Of course, deaths did occur in the arena, and the life of a gladiator was undoubtedly brutal and short. But the idea that every fight ended in a gruesome demise is a bit of a Hollywood exaggeration. So, the next time you're picturing a gladiatorial showdown, remember it was more nuanced and complex than just a fight to the death. It was a spectacle, a business, and a strangely fascinating reflection of Roman society. All right, let's talk sanitation, or as the Romans might have put it, salus populi suprema lex esto. The health of the people is the supreme law, because you know what's not very pax romana? Dying of dysentery. That's why the Romans took their sewage system very seriously. In fact, they took it so seriously, they dedicated a goddess to it, Cloacina. Yeah, you heard me right. A goddess of sewers. And you thought your plumbing problems were bad. Cloacina, whose name probably comes from the Latin word for cleanse, was believed to protect the city from the dangers of overflowing sewage. Imagine the job interview for that one. So tell me, what are your qualifications for being the goddess of sewage? But hey, don't judge. The Romans understood that a functioning sewer system was essential to public health and the prosperity of the empire. They even had a massive, intricate sewer system called the Cloaca Maxima, parts of which are still in use today. That's right, parts of ancient Roman plumbing are still functioning. take that modern infrastructure. So next time you flush, take a moment to thank Cloacina, or, maybe just appreciate the miracle of modern plumbing. Either way, the Romans were light years ahead of their time when it came to sanitation. We've all seen those crumbling ruins, right? The faded glory of the Roman Empire slowly being reclaimed by nature. But here's the thing, those ruins have stood for centuries, even millennia, and a big part of that is thanks to their secret weapon, Roman concrete. No, seriously, the Romans were masters of concrete. They used it everywhere. Roads, bridges, aqueducts, you name it. And their structures, unlike some modern buildings I could mention, were built to last. So what was their secret? Was it some lost knowledge passed down through generations of toga-clad engineers? Well, it turns out the answer was right under their feet: volcanic ash. The Romans discovered that adding volcanic ash to their concrete mixture created a super strong, durable material. This secret ingredient reacted with the other components of the concrete to create a material that could withstand the ravages of time, weather, and even seawater. That's right, seawater. Roman concrete was so durable that they even used it to build harbors and piers. Structures that, remarkably, are still standing today. Meanwhile, some modern concrete structures start crumbling after a few decades. Maybe we should be taking notes from the Romans. Okay, so volcanic ash might not sound like the most appealing ingredient for a building material, but trust the Romans, they knew what they were doing. You see, volcanic ash contains silica, a key ingredient in making concrete strong and durable. When the Romans mixed volcanic ash with lime, water, and other aggregates, a chemical reaction occurred that created a super strong binding agent. This made their concrete incredibly resistant to cracking, even under pressure. In fact, recent studies have shown that Roman concrete actually gets stronger over time, thanks to the continued chemical reactions happening within the material. It's like the concrete version of a fine wine, just getting better with age. And here's the kicker. Roman concrete is also more environmentally friendly than modern concrete. The production of modern concrete is a major contributor to carbon emissions. Roman concrete, on the other hand, required less heat to produce and actually absorbed carbon dioxide over time. So not only was it stronger and longer lasting, it was better for the environment too. We often think of shopping malls as a modern invention, but guess what? The Romans did it first. Those toga-wearing innovators also invented the shopping mall. Trajan's market was a multi-level complex in Rome. Imagine a bustling marketplace with over 150 shops. It was the place to see and be seen in ancient Rome. You could find everything from silks to spices. There were even food vendors selling ready-to-eat meals. Trajan's market was also a social hub. So, next time you're at a mall, remember Trajan's market. Hey there, history hounds. It's your boy back to dig deeper into the wacky, wonderful world of ancient Rome. And trust me, things are about to get downright divine. Some Roman emperors took being larger than life to a whole new level. We're talking full-blown godhood, people. Julius Caesar and Augustus were declared gods by the Roman Senate. It was a political move to legitimize their successors. Essentially, you couldn't question the emperor, even a dead one. Most Romans went along with emperor worship to avoid trouble. It became part of the social and political fabric of Roman life. And that, my friends, is how even death was a political statement in ancient Rome. Let's talk about Saturnalia, the Roman holiday that makes our modern-day celebrations look like a trip to the DMV. For one glorious week each December, the rigid social hierarchy of ancient Rome was turned upside down. Slaves got to kick back, masters served the meals, and everyone indulged in food, wine, and merriment. It was like a week-long toga party, but with fewer togas falling off. Saturnalia was a temporary release valve, a controlled chaos that ultimately reinforced the existing social order. It was a time for feasting, revelry, and reaffirming the bonds that held Roman society together. All right, history buffs, buckle up because we're about to delve into the fascinating world of ancient Roman economics. And no, we're not talking about stock options or cryptocurrency, but something far more essential: salt. You heard me right, salt. The same stuff you probably just sprinkled on your avocado toast was a hot commodity in ancient Rome, so much so that it was used as currency. Yep, Roman soldiers were partially paid in salt. The word Salary comes from the Latin word salarium, referring to the salt allowance given to Roman soldiers. Salt was essential for preserving food, flavoring meals, and even treating wounds. It was a valuable and practical form of payment. Imagine a Roman soldier receiving his salarium. It wasn't just a paycheck, it was a symbol of sustenance and security. So, the next time you reach for the salt shaker, remember the Roman soldiers who depended on this humble mineral to survive, thrive, and conquer. Hey there, history fans! We're back with another surprising fact about ancient Rome, and this one is going to make you question everything you thought you knew about calendars. You know how we have 12 months in a year? Well, the Romans didn't always roll that way. Nope, they had a system with only 10 months. Can you imagine that? Trying to schedule your entire year into 10 months instead of 12? This original Roman calendar kicked off in March, which, let's be honest, makes a certain kind of sense. March is named after Mars, the Roman god of war, and it's when things start to warm up and feel like a fresh start. So March was month one, then came April, May, June, and so on. But here's the catch. Those last few months weren't named what we'd expect. Instead of September, October, November, and December, which, if you think about it, means 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th, they had, well, the names aren't important. What is important is that this calendar left roughly 60 days unaccounted for. That's right, 2 whole months just hanging out, unaccounted for, in the dead of winter. It's like the Romans just took a 2-month break from keeping track of time. Now, we don't know a ton about those missing winter months. Some historians believe that early Romans considered winter a time outside the calendar, a time for rest and festivals, and maybe not much else. Fortunately, around 700 BCE, the legendary second king of Rome, Numa Pompilius, decided enough was enough. 10 months just wasn't cutting it. Numa, being the wise and forward-thinking ruler that he was, decided to add 2 new months to the calendar. January, named after Janus, the god of beginnings, and February, named for a purification ritual. This brought the Roman calendar closer to the lunar year, but it still wasn't perfect. It still lagged behind the solar year, and adjustments had to be made periodically. Fast forward a few centuries and enter Julius Caesar, who, not content with just conquering Gaul and writing about himself in the third person, decided to reform the Roman calendar once and for all. In 45 BCE, he implemented the Julian calendar, a 365-day calendar with a leap year every 4 years. And that, my friends, is the basis for the calendar we use today. All right, let's talk Roman sanitation. I know, not the most glamorous topic, but trust me on this one. The Romans, despite their love of conquering and togas, were surprisingly ahead of their time when it came to hygiene. We've already talked about their impressive sewer system, but what about their public toilets? That's right, public toilets. Forget your fancy private bathrooms. In ancient Rome, if you had to go, you often went with company. These public latrines were a common sight in Roman cities, and they were a far cry from the dark, smelly outhouses you might imagine. Many were spacious, well-lit, and even had running water. Talk about luxury. But here's the real kicker. Roman public toilets weren't just about taking care of business. They were also social hubs. Imagine catching up on the latest gossip, debating politics, or even just enjoying a bit of light reading while, doing what you came there to do. Now, before you romanticize Roman public toilets too much, let's talk about hygiene. While they were certainly more advanced than what came before, they weren't exactly sparkling clean by today's standards. For one thing, the Romans didn't have toilet paper. Instead, they used a tool that might make you squirm a bit, the tussorium. The tussorium was essentially a sponge on a stick, shared by everyone using the latrine. Yes, you heard that right, shared. After doing their business, Romans would use the tussorium to clean themselves, then dip it back into a channel of flowing water before the next person took their turn. Not exactly the most sanitary system, but hey, at least they were trying. Despite the shared sponges and potential for, shall we say, unsavory conditions, Roman public toilets offer us a fascinating glimpse into their social customs and attitudes towards hygiene. They were a far cry from the private, isolated bathrooms we're used to today, and they highlight the communal nature of Roman life. Well, that's it for our whirlwind tour of surprising facts about ancient Rome. From urine mouthwash to 10-month calendars to public toilets that doubled as social clubs, we've covered a lot of ground today. Hopefully you've learned a thing or two and maybe even had a few laughs along the way. Remember, history isn't just about dates and battles, it's about the weird, wacky, and sometimes downright gross details that make the past come alive. So the next time you brush your teeth, glance at a calendar, or use a public restroom, take a moment to think about the Romans and their unique approach to, well, pretty much everything. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed these surprising facts about Roman history, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more fascinating content. Let us know in the comments which fact surprised you the most. Was it the urine mouthwash, the 10-month calendar, or maybe the communal sponge sticks? Until next time, stay curious.